Keep it cool. These people are looking at us.
Hi, she's the monster. I'm the robot. Hey, Gila.
Hey, Rob.
How are you?
I am like a pile of good things. How are you?
I am like a bucket of good stuff. And do you know why?
Can I guess?
You can guess.
Is it because we're sitting down to do episode 308 of Modern Technology Watches?
308 of Modern Technology Watches.
308!
The podcast in which I, Rob Vincent,
And I, Gila Drazen,
show one another movies from our combined collection that we have seen and enjoyed and that mean things to us and the other has not seen.
Correct. And we do this because we are a married couple of film geeks with what you might call radically divergent tastes.
That is true. And tonight, it is my pick.
Yes.
It is my pick of a film.
Yes.
For the first time in forever.
Because you're very nice to me. And we did kind of suspend the rules a little bit. And last time out, you know, we saw a movie that neither of us had seen because it was brand new and in the theaters. So yes, it is your selection.
My voice is a little scratchy. We just came back from a trip to the woods in which there were all the allergies present.
All of the allergens, every single one of them.
I brought a few back with me. But, I think.
Therefore you are.
Therefore I are going to get up and go to our shelf.
Okay.
And retrieve a movie.
I'm not going to watch while you do this. I'm going to make eye contact with the Modern Technology, would we call this an alien? That's on the microphone.
I call it a bug, I think.
The Modern Technology Podcast Network mascot that is on the sticker that is on the microphone into which I am speaking. It has no pupils, and that is weird. But I think its eyes contain depths and mysteries. You're back.
I am back.
And
Before I reveal this movie that I've got under my t-shirt, did I ever tell you where I got this design for the little bug in our Modern Technology Podcast Network logo?
I don't know that you did.
I had a dream, and that critter was in it. And so when I woke up, I drew it, thinking maybe I'll use this guy for something. And then when I started putting this little shindig together, it seemed like the right time.
I love it.
Okay.
So this is a dream come true for you, is what you're saying.
It really is, in so many ways. And that's why I'm handing you this.
I've never heard of this. This, listeners, as you know, but I didn't until right now, is a film called Colossal. Anne Hathaway, Jason Sudeikis, Dan Stevens, and Tim Blake Nelson. Can I ask?
Yes?
Did you choose it because Ted Lasso just ended?
I have been thinking about this for a long time, and I knew our recording this episode would kind of line up. And, yeah, we have been watching Ted Lasso. We have been enjoying it immensely.
Rob likes a sports show. Rob likes a sports show.
Shut it. This is a weird-ass little movie that Jason Sudeikis was involved in. We like Jason Sudeikis a lot.
We do. We like everybody in this movie.
We like him from Saturday Night Live.
Yes.
We liked him from Ted Lasso.
We liked him from Saturday Night Live. We liked him from Ted Lasso. We liked him from... I liked him from Horrible Bosses, which I don't think you've seen.
I have not seen it. But yeah, we literally, just before recording, finished up the final episode of Ted Lasso. So we're still vibing on that. No spoilers for that. Yeah, now we got this to deal with.
Okay.
So what have we got going on in the case here?
So,
we've got the Blu-ray. Yes.
We've got the Blu-ray. So on the cover, Anne Hathaway is kind of doing a ta-da, and Tim Blake Nelson is holding a clipboard, an iPad, and excuse me. Damn it. Dan Stevens looks cranky because he does that very well, and Jason Sudeikis looks confused. And there's some sort of alien robot, some such or another, and things are exploding in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Should I read the back copy?
What's on the back?
Okay. Truly a film not to be missed, says Screen Anarchy. I didn't know that was a thing. Okay. Gloria, Anne Hathaway, is an out-of-work party girl who, after getting kicked out of her apartment by her boyfriend, Dan Stevens, is forced to leave her life in New York and move back to her hometown, where she's reunited with her childhood friend, Jason Sudeikis. When news reports surface that a giant creature is destroying Seoul, South Korea, Gloria gradually comes to the realization that she is somehow connected to this far-off phenomenon. As events begin to spin out of control, Gloria must determine why her seemingly insignificant existence has such a colossal effect on the fate of the world. Experience the wildly original film critics are calling a great deal of fun, saith the New York Times. So, we just finished watching Ted Lasso.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about the butterfly effect.
Yes.
And how you can have random effects on other parts of the world you weren't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I'm getting a sense of all of that. And Tim Blake Nelson is in it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 1 hour, 50 minutes. 2016.
2016.
She is Colossal.com.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think that still exists, or do you think probably somebody's squatting on that URL by now?
It does still exist. I actually looked at it recently, preparing for this.
Well, I am excited.
I think there will be things in this movie to talk about. And hey, it's a little more Jason Sudeikis after we've just watched the end of his little sports show.
I'm excited.
You ought to be.
I am.
So, how about we let our pal Torley play some music for the people and go off and watch 2016's Colossal.
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 Colossal. Capital idea.
Hey, Gila.
Hey, Rob.
Are we back?
We are back.
And we have just watched 2016's Colossal.
We have indeed just watched 2016's Colossal. And I have questions. I have so many questions. Not the least of which is this movie came out in 2016.
Yes.
Where did you meet this movie? Because I know we didn't see it in 2016.
We didn't see this movie, but I don't remember what movie it was, but we saw this trailer on a movie that we watched. I remember seeing this trailer in the theaters, filing it away in my head as, oh, that looks interesting. So it was something we saw in the theater, had this trailer on it. Not sure if we were, like, living together yet or what, but...
Okay.
I mean, this would have been before we were living together.
This would have been before. Theatrically released in the United States on April 7th, 2017.
Right.
So, we would have seen a trailer for it in, like, early 2017, late 2016, early 2017.
Right. It's a 2016 release because it had its festival showings in 2016.
Yes, we do trip up on that a lot here.
We saw this trailer and we didn't see the movie in the theaters, but I came upon it at some point and watched it by myself. I enjoyed it very much. I bought the Blu-ray and now you've seen it too.
I have.
What did you think?
Wow. It was so many things and so many things all at the same time and nothing that I was expecting it to be at all.
Awesome.
And, you know, at the very beginning, I was thinking, I remember this thought pattern going through my head. I was like, it's like somebody made a movie specifically designed for this household. Because initially I was like, oh, it's kind of like cute rom-com and sci-fi and all of those things. And it turned out to be none of those things. But initially, you know, kind of lulled me into a false sense of security. And then shit got real weird.
Yes. Oh, man. This is exactly how I hoped it would strike you. And I remember when we recorded the first part of this podcast, and we had just watched the end of Ted Lasso.
Quite literally just.
Which, as we're recording now, was yesterday. We recorded the first part, then took a day, and this is the following evening. We're recording now. And I knew that we were both vibing on awesome, happy, positive mustache Jason Sudeikis.
Yes, and there was one point in the stunning denouement of this movie where I was like, okay, so not Ted Lasso.
Not at all.
No.
No, but I also know how difficult it is to surprise you with a narrative film. You've got a brain that just calculates what's going to happen in stories, and listeners to this program will be familiar with that phenomenon. And I knew that this would hit you a little different.
You can't plot this.
No, you can't. And I hoped you would like it, but even if this struck you as like total garbage, I at least was confident you weren't going to anticipate how it went or what happened.
First of all, just for clarification, it did not strike me as total garbage. But also, the thing is, if you put Anne Hathaway and Jason Sudeikis and Tim Blake Nelson in anything, yeah, I'll throw a couple hours at it. But also, it was so many things. And often I say, oh my God, there were so many things, as like a bad thing. But this wasn't. It was just going so many places. And also, we got more Dan Stevens than we did in Welcome to Chippendales.
We did.
Much more and much less homicidal Dan Stevens. So, you know, that's a win. Thank you. Thank you for this one.
I get the sense that you don't regret putting that.
I don't at all regret putting this into my eye holes. I mean, it is kind of a what the hell did we just watch? Not what the hell did you make me watch? But like, what was this? I'm still kind of processing it.
Sure. But,
you know, the movie ended, it's late-ish, and the movie ended and I was like, I have so many questions. So many questions.
Yeah. It's that kind of movie. It does what it does, and it does so many things at once, as you're saying. And I think it does them really well together. Like, just saying it because hopefully people listening to this have seen the film, because we're going to spoil the heck out of it.
As we always do.
This is like an alcoholism recovery / partner abuse / domestic abuse / kaiju movie, which kaiju is the category of movies with giant monsters like Godzilla, King Kong, and so forth.
Thank you.
It's a Japanese word.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
This was written and directed by a man called Nacho Vigalondo, who is from Spain. And he has done sort of more obscure, I guess, artsy type of things. And this was not a big movie. This was a very tiny, scrappy, independent movie. And this was the guy to do it. I think this is not a movie that your average writer-director could have come up with.
No. And I'm also curious, have you seen, knowing how you feel about time travel cinema, have you seen his first movie?
I have not.
According to his Wikipedia entry, it says, he finished his first full-length feature film, Los Cronocrímenes, English title, Time Crimes. In 2007. I mean, this guy seems like he's just right up your street.
Yeah. Spanish language alien invasion film Extraterrestre. In 2011, he was recruited to direct a film adaptation of Mark Miller's Super Crooks. Mark Miller, big comic book guy. Horror anthologies, and this. And
the Hulu original film, apparently.
Yeah, some other stuff after that. But this is not like a famous name your average American filmgoer would know.
Yeah, this is, oh my goodness. This is
it's a bunch of genre stuff.
And I'm just super psyched that we did this one. This is, wow. This is one of the deepest cuts, I think.
It's a very deep cut, but it's a rewarding cut, I think. And I am so tickled by your reaction so far. This was not happy fun Ted Lasso.
No.
This was not, family comedy friendly Anne Hathaway.
No,
but this was a bunch of actors who you would not anticipate doing the characters they do in this film.
Okay, there are basically 5 people in this movie. And I would say that at least one of them is playing a character you would expect.
Tim Blake Nelson?
Yeah.
Yeah, as Garth. We could just get right into it with the cast section here on the Wikipedia article for Colossal Film. And there are a bunch of names here for smaller roles that don't really have much to do.
I mean, 2. Can we say 2?
2. Yes.
It's 2 names.
Agam Darshi as Ash and Rukia Bernard as Marie. I think that's 2 of her friends in the beginning that barge into the house.
Okay.
They're kind of there. But let's get to the interesting bits now.
Okay.
And going from the bottom up, Tim Blake Nelson as Garth.
Now, Tim Blake Nelson. I know you were wondering when we were going to get to the book in this episode.
He is definitely that guy.
He is A, that guy, and B, they talk in the book, because of course he's in the book, about the two forks of his career. Because there are indeed two forks of his career. And one is where he is a writer, director of really smart, incisive, cutting edge cinema. And the other is the acting fork where he plays real dopes in movies.
Yeah, he's a that guy character actor who is like the twitchy dope off in the corner.
Yeah, like, did you ever see The Good Girl?
The Good Girl. Which one was that?
That's the one Jennifer Aniston, Jake Gyllenhaal, Zooey Deschanel, Tim Blake Nelson. There's a moment in The Good Girl. Okay, his character name is Bubba. Bubba. And at one point, he is like blackmailing someone and he goes running out onto his sidewalk naked with like an open bathrobe, basically like doing helicopter deck. Okay. That's some Tim Blake Nelson for you.
Sure.
Okay. But also, writer, director. It's just fascinating, the dichotomy of this man's professional output.
Yeah. I mean, I'm scrolling through his filmography on his wiki and, I knew he directed O, which was the modernized teen adaptation of Othello that took place in high school and was a really weird ass take on it. I think this was not too far after, 2001. So it wasn't too far after Romeo plus Juliet.
Everything was happening then. Romeo plus Juliet, 10 Things I Hate About You. We were having this conversation while we were driving at some point. While
we were driving on the trip I went to, from which I brought back all the allergies that listeners I know you can still hear in my voice. I apologize.
It's true. Yeah. The teen Shakespeare boom of the late 90s, early aughts was quite real.
Oh, and he was in the weird Ethan Hawke Hamlet film.
Who was he in the weird Ethan Hawke Hamlet film?
Flight Captain. No idea. I haven't seen this in 100 years, but
cool.
But yeah. He was a cockroach voice in Joe's apartment. I love that movie.
Of course he was. He was in This Is My Life. Which is yet another one of those movies that I really like the book. I love the book. The movie took some significant
liberties.
Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for.
Okay.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
And in this movie, he plays Garth. Who is kind of the twitchy bar friend who may or may not be doing coke in the bathroom.
Right. Did we ever get resolution on that?
No.
Did he just kind of disappeared after that scene?
Yeah,
he was just done.
He was done.
But yeah, Tim Blake Nelson. Definitely pro.
Austin Stowell as Joel.
Do we know him from anywhere?
Let us see. I mean, he's got that face. It looks like the artwork on the original Choose Your Own Adventure books. The artist who drew those drew faces that look like this guy.
And he also just square jaw, like guy with short hair.
All American boy looking dude.
Yes. He was in Whiplash, which we haven't watched yet, but I want to.
He was in a bunch of stuff I have not seen.
He was in Battle of the Sexes. He played Larry King in Battle of the Sexes?
Good heavens.
Huh.
I want to see that one.
Me too. And he's going to be in Three Women.
I beg your pardon?
He's going to be a cast member in the series Three Women. And he was in an episode of the first season of The White Lotus. All
right. He was in the Amazing Stories reboot a couple of years ago. An adaptation of Catch-22 that I didn't see. The 90210 reboot.
Which I'm sure you didn't see.
No.
Behind the Candelabra, which you haven't seen.
No, but I want to see that one.
I know. I want to see it again.
Yeah, so he's been in nothing else I've seen.
He's been around, but he was definitely, I would say, well cast in the good-looking kind of Cypher role. Yeah,
the amiable dope.
Yeah.
Dan Stevens as Tim, Gloria's ex-boyfriend.
Okay, Dan Stevens as Tim, Gloria's ex-boyfriend, or your boyfriend at the top of the film.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know who this is?
I do not, but having clicked over to his wiki, okay, he was a Russian Eurovision singer in Fire Saga.
Mm-hmm. He was the one that was showing interest in What's Her Bucket?
Okay.
And Rachel McAdams.
Yeah.
And Will Ferrell got jealous.
Of course, he was in Downton Abbey.
Yes. He was the Beast in the live-action Beauty and the... And he was in...
Oh, he was in The Fifth Estate.
And the first episode of The Chippendale Show.
Yes, he was the killer.
Yes.
Spoilers for Chippendales, there's a killer.
Spoilers for Chippendales if you haven't read any of the articles or listened to any of the podcasts or watched the show or, if you didn't live it.
Yeah, it's always weird giving a spoiler warning for like things that actually happened in real life. You can't really complain about history being spoiled for you.
Well, theoretically you could. I mean, it would be dumb, but you could.
Oh, he's in the upcoming Godzilla vs. King Kong movie. Because people asked for that.
Yeah, I was going to say, does that need to have happened?
Sense and Sensibility, Dracula TV movie, Frankenstein series, and a bunch of theater.
Mm-hmm.
And a gang of audiobooks.
He was the narrator of the King James Bible.
Oh, and he was in a Big Finish Doctor Who.
Big Finish! Dun dun dun!
Really striking features.
He's a good-looking guy.
He's a good-looking dude. What do you think of him in this movie?
I mean, he was weird in this movie, but like everybody was weird in this movie. Everybody was weird in this movie, and you couldn't get a handle on who anybody was, like, at all. And I know that was kind of part of the point.
I think it comes across well who he is, though. He's got just that right touch of superiority and worminess to be the jerk-ass ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, I mean, he does the jerk-ass ex-boyfriend part well, and I think he is probably the one of the 5 people we get to know the best who is probably most in touch with reality and he's sober more than anyone else in this movie. Ultimately, I think that's what it is. He's like weirdly patrician and condescending, but he's probably sober more than anybody else in this movie.
He's sober more than anyone else, but he's really judgy too.
Oh yeah, he's a massive douchebag.
So.
Yes.
Moving on. Jason Sudeikis as Oscar, Gloria's childhood friend.
Jason Sudeikis as Oscar, Gloria's childhood friend. I do love Jason Sudeikis.
You do. I mean, we do. Who doesn't?
You want a fun Jason Sudeikis story?
Sure.
I actually have a Jason Sudeikis story. Years ago, I was walking on 2nd Avenue in New York City. And I was walking past an office building that has a bunch of benches outside in like a sitting area. And as I was walking down the street, I was listening to music, as I often do. Mm-hmm. And I was jamming out to the music I was listening to, as I often do.
Sure.
And at that precise moment, the music playing in my ears was Kind and Generous by Natalie Marchant. Na 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 na. Mm-hmm. Rocking out, jamming, hand motions, head is moving. I am literally dancing down the street. Mm-hmm. Then I remembered I was in public in the middle of the city. And I opened my eyes, which of course were closed. And I made eye contact with someone who was sitting on a bench who just gave me a really cool, like, nod of, I see what you're doing and I appreciate it. And I got about a half a block away before I was like, holy fuck, that was Jason Sudeikis. I just had a moment with Jason Sudeikis.
That is awesome. If you're going to have a moment with Jason Sudeikis, make it one like that.
It was just such a wholesome situation. And I was like, that was just, and I got to my office and I was like, Jason Sudeikis.
Amazing.
Dancing. Jason. Okay.
Would this have been back when he was on Saturday Night Live?
Yeah.
Or? Okay.
So I was like, why is he this far east? But I didn't think much of it. Jason Sudeikis, obviously, we're huge Ted Lasso fans. Mm-hmm. So.
Great on Saturday Night Live.
Great in everything. Mm-hmm. You haven't seen Horrible Bosses. We talked about this a little bit in the intro. You should see it. It's sort of fascinating in a weird way.
His very first movie was...
Our very second movie, The 10.
Yeah. I'm looking at his wiki now, and this guy works and was working.
It's true, but if I could say, he maybe needs to have made better film choices.
There is nothing wrong with having been in bad movies. I mean, he was in movie 43, which is like the bad movie.
It's true.
It's so bad even I don't enjoy it.
Now, did you ever see The Campaign?
The Campaign? I don't believe so.
Will Ferrell and Zach Galifianakis. I really liked it. I saw it with my parents. They did not. That's okay. We're going to need to watch that one too.
The same year, 2016, the same year he did this movie, he also did a voice of the Red Bird in the Angry Birds movie. He
had 6 movies come out in 2016.
Uh-huh. Well, one of them was the Angry Birds movie, so does that really count?
6 movies came out in 2016.
6 movies.
Jeebus.
Not long after this, he was in Downsizing, which was supremely disappointing. He was in the Angry Birds movie, too, where he reprised the role of Red.
There's a movie called Kodachrome?
Yeah, looks interesting enough.
Did they use the song?
It'd be a shame if they didn't. But what's there to say about Jason Sudeikis in this movie?
Ugh.
Yeah.
I think is a fair way to put it.
Well put.
Thank you.
He starts off sort of amiable enough, and you think, okay, he's going to be like the likable dude. He's going to be the Jason Sudeikis guy. And he takes a turn.
It was weird to watch that turn happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jason Sudeikis, super amiable, super nice, and then calibrating that to take the turn from nice guy to like weirdly love bomby to like asshole to abusive asshole to destructive, like utterly destructive guy. The way this movie worked as metaphor and meditation on so many things. What is maturity? What is growth? What is age? What, so many of these things. And, you know, was the central conceit a metaphor for substance abuse? Was it... so many questions. But yes, Jason Sudeikis in this movie. Ugh. And, frustratingly enough, with that scruffy beard, at his dreamiest.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely dreamy. And when he takes that turn into abusive asshole, first of all, it's total whiplash coming off of the Ted Lasso finale.
Yeah.
It was a ride, and I think he did it really well.
He's a good actor.
He is.
And if we could talk for a minute about parasocial relationships. And I think that, especially with Jason Sudeikis, you know, his public persona, especially since the advent of Ted Lasso, has really been trading on that Midwestern kindness that we all know he has.
Yeah.
And then to hear these stories about, like, he laid down in front of Olivia Wilde's car to keep her from driving out of the driveway, and all the, like, people felt personally betrayed by these private stories from his life.
He had a really messy breakup, and it took place in the public eye. And it was while he was making Ted Lasso, which the last whole season has been about.
Right. And then it got relitigated a couple of times. I mean, it keeps getting relitigated in public. So I'm willing to say that I felt emotionally betrayed by Jason Sudeikis in this movie after watching Ted Lasso.
Yes.
Which just goes to show what a good actor he is. Not in like a parasocial kind of way. I don't know Jason Sudeikis. You know, we had one moment on 2nd Avenue 10 years ago. Doesn't count.
It's still better than I know him.
But, oh my God. Just the range. So many things.
Really effective performance in this.
Very well done.
And Anne Hathaway as Gloria.
Gloria. Gloria.
You think you got her number? Anne Hathaway.
Anne Hathaway.
My birthday buddy.
Your birthday buddy.
She was born on not the same year, but the same day as me. And yeah, she has done so much work that her Wikipedia article does not contain her filmography. There's another whole article that's list of Anne Hathaway performances. What's your take on Anne Hathaway in general?
I know this may be what's the word I'm looking for? Controversial opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But I like Anne Hathaway. I know not everybody does, but I like her.
Yeah.
And I will also say, another potentially controversial opinion, I like Princess Diaries 2 better than Princess Diaries. I think the sequel is better. Maybe it's because it has Chris Pine. I don't know. But I like it better.
I don't know that I'd ever seen Princess Diaries 2. I saw the first one in the theater.
No more need be said. I know the rest of the story without your having to say it.
Yes, I went with my friend Gray, and it was her turn to pick the movie.
Like I said, I knew you were going to say that.
But I didn't dislike it. She is a basically charming human being.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in her public persona and in the vast majority of her work.
The first time she hosted Saturday Night Live, you knew we were going to get to this at some point too.
Mm-hmm.
In 2008. It's a good episode. I've made you rewatch it a gazillion times.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the one where she does the whole monologue about her then recent ex-boyfriend who went to jail for fraud.
Yeah.
So then she did the whole thing about, but then I met this new guy and he's great. And I mean, I don't normally answer emails from fans, but how often do you meet a Nigerian prince? And she just totally went into it. It was great.
Yeah. Just leaning right into it.
And, you know, the Mary Poppins sketch they did on that one.
Mm-hmm.
And when she and James Franco co-hosted the Oscars, and it was one of the most awkward things anyone has ever seen, ever, 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 I didn't hate it. I didn't hate her. But yeah, she's someone that I will see stuff if she's in it.
Yeah, same.
Even if it's not good.
Yeah, and she's done her share of cheesy movies, junky movies, whatever, but even in the crappier ones, you can still watch her.
Mm-hmm.
And she's fine. She was in the Les Mis movie in 2012 that was not great, but she was fine.
And hey, she got an Oscar for it. So.
Mm-hmm. And in this, what do you think about her? You're making such an array of faces, one after another.
I know, and none of it translates. Audio medium, I know.
So I'm narrating.
And I appreciate that. And again, I like Anne Hathaway.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an Anne stan.
Mm-hmm.
With that said,
mm-hmm.
I think she did the best she could with what was there. The character, on the one hand, a lot of fun. On the other hand, what was that hair they had her in? What was that hair? And of the 5 of them, I feel like she was kind of the least... Well, none of them was terribly sharply drawn, but... I don't know, it was weird.
I mean, she was the story's punching bag.
She was.
Right up until she wasn't anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That is the journey.
Yes, it is. I like her, and that counts for a lot, I think. Yes.
All right. There are also a couple of young actors who play the young versions of Gloria and Oscar, whose names are not wiki-linked. And
their names are not wiki-linked, and I don't even think we hear them speak.
No, we don't. They're just kind of silent and popping up in flashbacks. But Anne Hathaway was the first actress to sign on to this movie when it had no financial backing. According to this movie, back on the movie's wiki article.
Yes. What is a field in England?
Well, it's in England, right?
Right.
And it's this piece of ground. No, A Field in England is a 2013 British historical psychological horror film directed by Ben Wheatley. It's set during the mid-17th century English Civil War.
A black and white movie.
I have not heard of this before.
Nor had I.
But apparently she saw that and wanted to make a movie like it, and then saw the script for this.
Well, okay. It was such a trip. This movie was such a trip. Hathaway found herself attracted to the genre-hopping nature of the script, later comparing it to Being John Malkovich, one of her favorite films. Excellent taste.
Excellent taste. And also, that just tracks, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Of course, one of her favorite films is Being John Malkovich.
Well, I mean, first of all, find me someone who doesn't like being John Malkovich.
I mean,
I dare you.
you're not going to find someone in this house.
No.
I'm pretty sure John Malkovich must, at some points, like being John Malkovich.
I would assume as much.
I mean, he seemed to like being John Malkovich in being John Malkovich.
Malkovich.
That's the cast. It's a very small cast, very tight little story.
Yeah. Lots of people around, but very small cast.
Yeah.
It's a tight little film.
Okay, and after that seamless transition,
Utterly seamless.
it is now a couple of days later than it was when you heard us last. We had to pause recording and take a break, which turned out to be a couple of days. So,
Yes. But we're here and we're back and we've had time to percolate and now we're ready to discuss.
the plot of this movie. Now, I remember the movie. Do you?
Yes.
Okay. To aid us in this reminiscence, we have the plot section of the Wikipedia article for Colossal film.
Yes. That we do.
Gloria is an unemployed writer struggling with alcoholism. Her boyfriend, Tim, frustrated with her behavior, breaks up with her and kicks her out of their New York City apartment.
Okay, hang on. Wait.
Mm-hmm.
Can we just talk about this segment for a second?
Sure.
Okay, it's a whole thing. It's a nice apartment that they're living in.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes home, and very clearly they're having the same discussion they've had several times, where she's come in after being out all night. And
Yes. Obviously trashed.
And... Are you mad? Are you mad? And he's like, I'm fine. And then he's like, look, this isn't working. I'm going to work, and when I get home, maybe you shouldn't be here anymore, and I've packed your things for you. You can keep the suitcases. And, like, it's Dan Stevens, and Dan Stevens kind of has, like, upper crust smarm kind of down to a science.
Yeah, he is very smarmy in this. Very, you instantly don't like him, especially when he's talking to Anne Hathaway in that manner. Girl next door, Anne Hathaway, even though she is obviously at fault here.
She is definitely struggling, but I recognize we are 2 sentences into the plot. But something to think about, because I'm curious. Everyone in this movie is flawed, to say the least.
Oh, yes.
Is there a good guy in this movie?
I think there is.
Okay.
I think there's very clearly a good guy in this movie. I think Gloria comes out sort of a good guy in the end, to spoil the ending of the plot here. But she takes a long road to get there.
That's fair.
But if you're looking for a good guy, like, this isn't really a bad guys versus good guys movie, which is weird because it's a kaiju movie. But when I had handed you this movie with the disc art that very obviously has the cast plus a monster, I know the first time I saw this movie, it was kind of easy to forget about the monster bit and just get sucked into this relationship stuff and the character of Gloria.
Right. And I said when we were opening this discussion, right, I was like, how perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a rom-com-y monster movie. It's like they made it just for us.
Yes.
And then, we actually got into the movie and I was like, nope, that's not what's happening here.
But there's also, for people who are into kaiju movies, the historic kaiju movies like your Godzillas and your Gameras and your Reptilicuses, there is very often, like, the movie is obviously about the monsters getting angry and breaking stuff and fighting each other and breaking some more stuff. And it's about the spectacle of that. And they very often tack all these little side stories onto it with the humans involved to varying degrees of success or failure. But it's a running thing. There's always that human story alongside the monsters get together and fight. And maybe that's just an excuse for there to be a movie so the monsters can get together and fight. And maybe as a kid, I would watch my tapes of Godzilla and Gamera movies and things and fast forward past the boring talking bits and get to the monster bits. But this movie, I think, pulls the viewer in with a well-crafted story, a well-crafted world before the monsters show up.
Absolutely. I mean, I was a little thrown by the monster at the very beginning, which you'll notice is not here.
That's right. They didn't start with the very beginning of this movie.
The preamble.
The preamble, which is of the little girl in South Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing the monster happen for the first time. and it disappears, and then suddenly you're in New York City with Anne Hathaway.
Right. So it was an interesting beginning, and then just slam cut to drunk Anne Hathaway coming home. No explanation.
None at all.
You're like, what is the connection? Which we will find out.
Mm-hmm. Moving back to her family home in Mainhead, New Hampshire.
Did we know it was New Hampshire?
I don't know whether it was specified as such on screen.
I mean, we knew Mainhead.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew it was somewhere northeastern.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't have any more. I don't remember there ever saying New Hampshire, hearing anything more specific. You know, we saw the tiny-ish airport.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it.
And suburbia.
Small townia.
Small townia, yes. Gloria reunites with her childhood friend Oscar, who now runs his late father's bar.
So, cool. We watched this right after the finale of Ted Lasso, and I was like, hey, Jason Sudeikis!
Mm-hmm.
This is exciting!
Yes.
No.
But he is at this point. At this point, it's like, hey, Jason Sudeikis, and he's all warm and friendly.
Warm and friendly, and like, can I give you a ride? It's so nice to see you. Let me give you a hug.
Yes, let me help you with your house. Oscar warmly welcomes Gloria and offers her a job at the bar, which she accepts.
Which, you know, interesting move for a person with a problematic relationship to alcohol. Mm-hmm. But a job is a job.
Indeed. Working at the bar aggravates Gloria's alcoholism.
I just took out my contacts. I can't see anything, so I didn't know that was coming.
Often drinking with Oscar and his friends Garth and Joel until morning, then sleeps it off in her nearly empty childhood home.
Okay, so we got a quick explanation at the beginning that her parents have, like, moved at least temporarily and are renting out the house?
Yeah, so she's
but nobody's renting it right now.
Yeah, nobody's renting it. It's empty. She can just use it. So she does. And it's empty as in not even a stick of furniture.
No furniture except, like, a refrigerator. Except the permanent furniture. Technically.
Yeah, so she's there on an inflatable mattress that keeps messing up.
The first night she used to sleep on the floor.
Right.
And then she went and bought the inflatable mattress, which kept deflating.
Yes.
And she also kept passing out.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, every time Jason Sudeikis came to, like, pick her up and take her to work, he'd be like, oh, gosh, I brought you a TV. I brought you a futon. Whatever. Mm-hmm. You know, it's this very bizarre interaction because it's weirdly love bombing, don't you think?
Absolutely. And he never really explains where he's getting this furniture or why he's bringing it. He's just like, oh, yeah, brought you this stuff.
You needed some furniture. I brought you some furniture.
Yeah. At the same time, a giant reptilian monster appears in Seoul, leaving death and destruction in its wake.
And it's terrifying. She wakes up after having been passed out all day, like to a phone call from her sister. Am I remembering that correctly?
I think so. Who's
like, oh my God, did you see the news? There's like an attack in Seoul. Then turns out to be this gigantic lizard monster. Godzilla-ish. Godzilla-ish.
Godzilla-ish. Slightly Godzilla-ish, but not nearly as Godzilla-ish as it was going to be. During the production and leading up to the release of this movie, the filmmaker who made this, Nacho Vigalondo, actually described this movie when it was having its festival-type showings as the cheapest Godzilla movie ever made. And Toho, the company that owns Godzilla, Toho didn't like that at all. And that is when they both redesigned the monster to be less Godzilla-ish and also changed the location of the Asian setting from Tokyo to Seoul.
Interesting. Huh.
So during production, it shifted. There's nothing really landmarky happening in the South Korea shots. So you could very easily just say, you know, oh, it's a city at night and there's Asian people there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Gloria realizes when she walks through a local playground at exactly 8:05 a.m., she causes the monster to manifest and can remotely control it.
She is the monster.
Basically. She is the monster not on purpose, but at 8:05 a.m., which happens to be when she's walking to her home through this playground, the monster appears and does whatever she does.
So it's only there when she's walking through the playground.
When she's walking through the sandbox pit thing.
Right, which
at the playground.
Was near their elementary school, and yeah. Question.
Yes.
Did people not notice the pattern?
Which pattern?
That it showed up at 8:05, whatever 8:05 Seoul time was?
Well, this wasn't a pattern yet. This had only just happened the once.
But when it happened the next couple of times,
which we'll get to,
don't you think, in the same way that in Mary Poppins, when they heard Admiral Boom's whistle and they knew he was going to blow some shit up, they held on to everything in the house so it didn't all break. If you knew that this Godzilla-ish monster was going to show up every night at 8:05 local New Hampshire time, wouldn't you just stay in your house for those 5 minutes? Because it didn't appear to last forever.
No, and they do. They totally do notice that. And that's why they're like evacuating and anticipating after the pattern is established. In South Korea, they're anticipating what it's going to do and they clear the area.
Okay.
Yes. They do notice this.
All right.
It is a great reveal, I think, when the film lets you and also Gloria figure out what's going on.
Yes, that moment was kind of fabulous.
The monster has her tick, which is scratching the top of her head nervously.
It's not just the top of her head. It's like she wears her hair, she's got bangs, and then a center part. And she scratches her part. Exclusively, and like the hand movement was exactly the same.
Right.
In the same way that like, if you know someone well enough, you can tell it's them by like, oh, that's the back of their head.
Right.
And if you see yourself, you can recognize your own mannerisms. So she's like, weird. Okay. Because they're at the bar and like watching the news because this is all anybody in the world is talking about. This gigantic monster terrorizing Seoul.
Yeah. And it keeps happening at the same time, day after day. And finally she gets it and decides to test it out. So one morning when she walks home, she walks through the playground very deliberately, stays sober for it, and just does a series of arm movements. She raises her arm up, she stretches her arms out to the sides and everything. And then she goes home and watches the news and sees the monster doing those same things.
And it's interesting because like they would stay up all night and drink in this bar that Jason Sudeikis' character, Oscar, had renovated half of it. And then he ran out of money.
Yes.
So there's the other half that is very much like it was when they were growing up. And she likes that half better.
Yes. It's got a cheesy Western theme.
And she wants to clean it up and expand into it.
Yeah. She's like, people will like this ironically now. And so it becomes sort of her cause at the bar is like, I want to clean up and reopen the Western side. And Oscar's like, okay, go ahead.
And at this point, they're still very much like palsy. So like one morning he shows up with a TV. And she's like, why are you bringing me this TV? He's like, because you asked for it. You know, if you black out that frequently, that's not a good sign.
No, but he realizes what's going on, which is interesting to note. She's having whole conversations and agreeing to things while she's trashed that she doesn't remember in the morning.
And yet he still continues to let her drink in his bar. Interesting.
Yes, and stay way past closing, just drinking with him and his friends. Gloria shares her discovery with Oscar and his friends by dancing in the playground while they watch a newsfeed of the monster mimicking her movements.
And that's kind of an interesting setup. She gets them to pull up a feed on their phones. And she's like, okay, watch this quadrant. And she's like, map the whole thing out. She figures out where on the playground is where in the city. And she's like standing in a place where she'll do minimum damage.
Now when she's showing off to them, she's still trashed.
Yes.
And she's like, hey guys, want to see something cool? And brings everyone with her after they leave the bar to this playground. She's still drunk. And so she's doing a dance but first she's considerate. She like signals as the monster for everyone to clear the area. And they do. And she gives them time to do it. She checks with the guys watching on the feed and is like, is it clear? And then she knows she's got her space to play around.
So she does. And, you know, it's kind of fun watching her notice that and watching the guys figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Because she's like imitating a dance that Jason Sudeikis had done in the bar.
Oh, yes. I'd forgotten that. and Gila's doing the dance right now. You can't hear it, listeners. You can't see it, but
it's unfortunate that you're missing it.
Yeah. It's a real shame because I enjoyed it.
Well, I'm glad you did. Thank you.
Yes. A helicopter launches a missile at the monster, causing Gloria pain.
She's like, ow, what was that? Because, like, it hits her in the head. And they're like, it's a helicopter.
Gloria lashes out, destroying the helicopter and killing the pilots. And the guys watch this happen too, and she starts to realize, like, oh, I destroyed the helicopter with the pilot and everything?
And then?
And the way Wiki words this isn't quite accurate. Wiki says, horrified at what she's done, she collapses, causing widespread destruction. She awakens to find that a delighted Oscar also manifested in soul, but as a giant robot. This is inaccurate because what happens is Sudeikis runs out to join her where she is in the sand pit to try and pull her out of there. And in the struggle, she falls over. And that makes the monster fall over. And of course, destroys a bunch of stuff and kills people.
And when she gets home, when she wakes up, Jason Sudeikis tells her, I can't call him Oscar.
Yeah.
Gloria and Oscar, yes. Mm-hmm. Jason Sudeikis and Anne Hathaway.
All right.
He shows her a picture and he's like, I was there too.
Yeah, and it's this robot there with the monster. Gloria tries to make amends by having the monster spell out an apology in Korean to the delight of the South Korean people and media, and begins avoiding both the playground and alcohol.
It's an interesting sequence.
Yeah, you see Sudeikis in a restaurant, a Korean restaurant, and he's talking to the people inside, and he comes out with a sheet of paper.
And a bag.
And a bag. Because they know him, everyone knows each other in this small town. And so they translated this thing for him and also gave him some free food.
So the next morning, so she clears out the space and then draws, she's got this piece of paper and she draws out the characters for the apology, which translates to, I'm sorry, this will never happen again. And all of a sudden, the monster who had been terrorizing Seoul is like a folk hero.
Yes. And it's gone viral and people are making videos of it about it. It's trending on Twitter, which is still a big deal back then.
It's a big thing not that long ago.
Yes.
Back in the day.
Back in the day.
Before.
Up to last summer.
So she decides she's going to avoid the playground. And she stops drinking.
Yes.
And then she makes a dumb decision. I'm sorry, it's a dumb decision.
And this is minimized in the wiki article here, which continues. After spending the night with Joel, Gloria discovers a drunken Oscar controlling the robot to taunt South Korea.
So Gloria and Joel ducked out early.
Yeah, they had kind of been flirting.
She
was obviously into him when she was drunk, Gloria.
And this is also where you see kind of the change in Oscar.
Yes.
Where he's no longer Jason Sudeikis, now he's Oscar. Because it was very much that thing of with furnishing her apartment and giving her a job and everything, I think he thought he owned her.
Yeah. Or she owed him.
Or both.
Yeah.
And that's not what happened. So she sleeps with Joel. Oscar does not handle it well.
No.
It's also not that I can tell really ever spoken of again between Gloria and Joel.
Not really. No. But this sets off the turn. And the way this movie goes into this, and the way this movie portrays things like the alcoholism, but also this abusive relationship that develops, it's really well done, I think. Not to go into details, but I've been through something like that. I've been on the Gloria end of that sort of relationship. And the feelings around it when you're going through it are so complex, even if you know that it's happening and it shouldn't be happening. And it tells the story.
Yes. And then to see this behavior, I'm like, oh, it's Jason Sudeikis. Nice guy Jason Sudeikis. And then all of a sudden he's really not. And it's that turn that I think women in general are familiar with, where someone who thinks that, well, people in general are really familiar with, pardon my generalization.
No, I would say that's a valid generalization as well.
Someone has been nice to you and you've been nice back, and then they think that means something, that you owe them something, and then you don't reciprocate the interest they think they have in you, and then you're the bad guy.
Yes.
And Oscar is an angry drunk. And we know this because he spends most of the rest of the movie very drunk and very angry.
Yeah, starting here when he goes to the playground without her and decides to be the robot for a while.
And just stomp on things. Stomp on things, stomp on people. And again, the monster has made it clear that the monster does not intend harm.
Mm-hmm.
Gloria's getting a kick out of dancing and scratching her head and whatever and seeing this monster in Seoul doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But her intent is not to cause any harm. She's the Hippocratic monster.
Well, as the article continues, after a tense confrontation, she makes him leave. And this is really interesting because she sees this happening live, wakes up Joel. There was a very cute scene where, like, she wakes up and Joel's asleep on her arm and she has to pull her arm out of there gently without waking him, and in doing so falls off of her side of the bed.
It's quite funny.
It's funny. It's sweet. It's, you know,
it's real.
It's real.
It's, you know, you're sleeping in the same space as someone else for the first time and you don't know how to extricate yourself from the particular circumstance.
But she sees this happening. She wakes up Joel and needs him to drive her to the playground while Oscar's screwing around as the robot. And so Oscar, out there, sees her and Joel show up in Joel's car.
And gets madder.
Mm-hmm.
Because.
Yes.
So he continues to, like, stomp on shit.
Yes.
And it's not, like, shit. It's people and cars and buildings.
Yeah. So she runs onto the sand pit and the monster shows up. And she shows up and just glares at him and points to the side, like, get out of here. And they have this standoff. And finally he's like, all right. And he leaves. And from the Koreans' point of view, the monster just showed up and saved them from the evil robot.
But it's also interesting because the entire world has been watching this happen.
Mm-hmm.
So as we're watching their confrontation in the sand pit, we keep panning over all the houses.
Yes.
The world is watching this live.
Yes, and you hear from the houses, you hear cheering. And Oscar hears this too and realizes they're cheering against him.
He is the international villain.
Yes.
He is the world's villain right now.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Yeah. Oscar thinks something happened between Gloria and Joel, becoming jealous.
Well, it did.
Yes. That night, he drunkenly insults his friends at the bar and demands Gloria have a beer, threatening to return to the playground if she refuses.
That's the whole thing. He keeps hanging this over her head, like, you need to do X, Y, and Z, or I'm gonna go back to the playground and fuck up some more Koreans.
And if you've known people who have had problems in their relationship to alcohol, and they've managed to stop drinking, and then you demand they have a beer with you, that's not just come have a drink with me.
No. And it's also like, he is probably 2/3 of the way through a full bottle of whiskey at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And all of his concern about, oh, you need a job, oh, you need furniture, whatever it is. Well, if you're going to fuck somebody else who's not me, I do not care about your welfare anymore.
Yes. So now he's just asshole boss. He's given her, like, the shit work to do at the bar. And he can basically get her to do whatever he wants by just saying, if you don't do it, I'm going to the playground.
And this scene where he just lashes out at his friends.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And that's not mentioned in the article. Oh, yes.
Well, I mean, it is, but
mentioned,
not to the extent that it really merits.
Yeah. The article doesn't go into detail, but, he is lashing into his friend who keeps going to the bathroom and is like, we all know you're doing coke in there. And
like, first of all, Tim Blake Nelson, who, again, I know I talked about this in the cast section, but he's in the book.
He's a that guy.
And they're talking about basically he's like this brilliant writer-director and also the guy who plays just utter bozos. Mm-hmm. He has a career in two paths.
Yes, he's got a line in Bozos.
Utter bozos.
In this movie, he is, one of these losers who's hanging out with Oscar at the bar all night because they don't have anything else going on. Mm-hmm. You get the sense, they're at the bar when it's open and then they're at the bar all night.
Basically, yeah.
And yeah, he lashes out at both of them. And he's very obviously, this is asshole Oscar.
It's asshole Oscar. And it's that, I feel like you see it a lot in media that portrays addiction. That moment where, if this were a rehab movie, that might be near his bottom.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it's not. Mm-hmm. But that moment where the person is weaponizing everything they know about everyone around them.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
You're doing coke in the bathroom.
Yeah.
We don't care if you're doing coke in the bathroom. Just say you're doing coke in the bathroom.
And it's very obvious. Like, Sudeikis plays this so well. We've known him on Saturday Night Live, and we've known him on Ted Lasso. But in this, I think he's really good at playing good guy Oscar and bad guy Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
The next morning, a sober Oscar apologizes to Gloria.
Does he, though? Does he apologize in any way that would pass the apology test? And side note here for a second. There's a website called Sorry Watch.
Sorry Watch.
Sorry Watch.
What does that do?
They rate public apologies.
Oh, wow.
They actually have a book about apologies that came out recently. Haven't gotten it yet, but that, I think, in conversation, in partnership with the most recent book by our friend Rabbi Danya Ruttenberg on repentance and repair, to talk about those two pieces together. Really interesting. Mm-hmm. You know, did you take responsibility for what you did? Have you figured out how you're going to fix it? I'm sorry if you were upset is not an apology.
Right. I'm sorry you feel that way.
Right. Not an apology. I'm sorry I destroyed a bunch of soul because I'm angry you fucked someone else.
Yes.
Is not an apology, but at least it's starting on the road to becoming what it needs to be.
Part of it has to be acknowledging what you did.
Exactly. Own the harm.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about what you're going to do to change it.
Yes, and we all know those people who owe us apologies, but we'll never get those apologies. Or all we get is something bullshit like this.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sorry, but, you know, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, I'm going back to the playground. Ugh.
And
gross.
The way this movie uses the monsters just as an analog and just turning what's going on in the relationship up to not even 11, like 111. Mm-hmm. It's super effective, I think.
I definitely agree.
And it's a really clever thing that they did with this movie. I am such a fan.
Did you think I would be? Did you think I would enjoy it?
I thought you might. I wasn't sure. And I knew I had a great way of finding out.
Here we are.
That's why we have this little project.
I think it's going quite well, though.
So do I. Tim pays a visit to Gloria, but is irritated by her living situation before apologizing.
Okay, that sentence is garbage.
Elucidate.
Well, first of all, is irritated by her living situation before apologizing. What? Like, just grammatically, it makes no sense.
Yes.
Oh, we've reached the point of the episode where I complain about Wikipedia. We knew we were going to get here eventually. Who had this particular moment in the pool? So Tim shows up. He's like, hey, I'm in town on business. She's like, no, you're not. He sees her in this house. He doesn't understand any of it. And then he's like, I'm sorry, I kicked you out. Mm-hmm. So, did you get the sense he was irritated by her living situation?
I don't know if I would say he was irritated. He was definitely confused.
Yes. Oh! Sorry. The furniture.
Yes.
Was it from Oscar's dad's house? Because Oscar's dad had passed away.
Right.
Was this his dead dad's furniture?
Right, because this is the part in the movie, and Wiki doesn't talk about it, but this is the part in the movie where she goes to Oscar's house, where he apologizes to her, but she sees how he's living, and he's a hoarder. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I think at this point what they're saying is he's got all this extra furniture and crap because he's a hoarder. And so that's where this stuff is coming from for Gloria. But also, like earlier, he was, when he was nice Oscar, he was talking about, oh yeah, he was in a relationship with somebody and almost married her, and her kid were great, but just didn't work out. And when she goes to his house in this part of the movie, you see the portraits that he has of the three of them around him and his ex and the kid, and like the ex's face is scratched out.
Which is always super healthy.
Yes. Yeah, he apologizes to her and she accepts it. She accepts it. She's like, we all do stupid things when we're drunk. How about we put the brakes on the drinking?
And then Tim takes her to work.
Yes.
And he's like, wait a second. How is this working? You got here and you had a job in 12 hours. How long were you working for a job in New York?
Mm-hmm.
It's weird.
It is weird.
And so he takes her to the bar, and then the weirdest thing happens.
Yes, which is next in the plot here.
Carry on.
Upon meeting Tim at the bar, Oscar provokes a confrontation by setting off fireworks indoors.
It's kind of underselling what happens.
Yes.
Like, extremely underselling what happens.
Mm-hmm. Because when they get there, Oscar has obviously been drinking more.
Quite a bit. It's like, you know that image of someone just like holding a bottle of Jack Daniels with a straw in it? That's kind of how much he's drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people in the bar, and they're like asking for stuff, and Gloria's like, let me get you what you need. And he's like, sit down.
Mm-hmm.
Sit down. And then he goes and gets this like box, and he's like, this has been sitting here for years. Everybody thought it was some sort of big fancy bottle of alcohol, but it's full of fireworks. He basically sets the entire western side of the bar on fire.
Yes.
With fireworks. He's very calm through the whole thing. And the thing it reminded me of the most was the darts scene in Ted Lasso season 1. But the universe of difference between Oscar and Ted Lasso.
Yes.
But in the same thing of like, I'm going about my business. I'm speaking very calmly.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to hit the moment, but he doesn't throw a bullseye. He doesn't say, be curious, not judgmental, and throw the dart.
Mm-hmm.
He like sets off all of the fireworks inside his bar.
Yes. Scaring the customers away. Halfway through this very reasonable speech where he's giving this long description of why he's got this thing of fireworks, and, you know, they were going to use them and they didn't get around to it, and didn't get around to it the next year, and this thing just sat in storage, and there was other stuff put in front of it, and it was just kind of forgotten back there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that calm, cold way of speaking where someone's obviously going to do something really fucked up in a minute.
But it reminded me of the dart thing.
Yeah. Except the reveal in the darts thing was Ted Lasso being extremely clever.
Extremely clever.
And also very nice.
Yes. And he is neither of those things. Oscar is neither of those things. So
No.
Oscar, like, blows up the bar.
Yes. Tim tries to get Gloria to leave with him, but she stays to curb Oscar's destructive behavior.
That's always going to work.
That's not accurate either. Because she is ready to leave with Tim.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, let's get the fuck out of here. And Oscar says, no, she's not leaving with you. She's staying right here. And you realize he's still got this power over her. And I don't think it's spoken aloud, but it's, if you don't do what I say, I'm going back to the playground. And so you see her, that moment where she's broken. She was all ready to just leave and take her power back and everything. And then she realizes, no, she can't. And people's lives are at stake, and she needs to stay with him.
So it's a monster movie.
Yes.
But it's also this allegory about addiction and codependence, and not even an allegory, really. It's just kind of right there.
Yes.
But yeah. And what are our responsibilities to ourselves, to other people, to the world? And also, why in God's name are they this monster-y type thing and this red robot?
Yes.
How did that happen?
And we learn this.
We do learn this. And why soul? Also an excellent question.
Yes.
Why soul?
We learn that too. Oscar visits Gloria's house to prevent her from leaving, and Gloria recalls their childhood. As a child, Gloria made a paper diorama of Soul as a school project, which was blown into what would later become the playground. A young Oscar retrieved it, but destroyed it out of jealousy. Gloria's anger triggered lightning, which strikes both of them, as well as their toys. Gloria's being a reptilian monster, Oscar's being a robot.
So you've got this diorama of Soul.
And they've been flashing to this flashback the whole movie, but in very small snippets of her and you learn Oscar walking to school holding their dioramas.
And then they're blown away. It gets caught. He goes to get them. She's like caught in a tree or something.
It's just hers is blown away.
Right.
He climbs a tree and hops the fence to, you figure, get it back for her. And she figures it too. She makes her way in there in time to see him get her project and then just start stomping the hell out of it.
Stomp it to little bitty bits. And as she's angry, lightning hits her down the center of her scalp where her part is, where her head always itches, along her scar.
Yeah.
And then you see blood come down her forehead.
Yes, very close-up shot of her forehead, and a little trickle of blood starts coming down.
And look, I get it. You know, I have a scar on my forehead. So I wore bangs for a really long time because I was self-conscious about my scar. So I get it. You know, if lightning had fucked up the top of your head, I can understand wanting to wear bangs. Makes sense.
Yes.
So, lightning strikes her and then him.
Yes.
So we've got Oscar, Gloria, Soul, and then these toys fall out of their bags. A reptilian monster type thing, and a great big robot.
Yeah.
And now it all is clear.
In the present, Gloria recognizes that Oscar's manipulative behavior arises from his self-hatred at never having amounted to anything. The robot manifests as his way of making himself feel important. After deciding to leave town, Gloria races Oscar. It says Gloria races Oscar for the playground. It should say to the playground.
Yeah.
After deciding to leave town, Gloria races Oscar to the playground. Oscar incapacitates her and destroys a large portion of Seoul, killing hundreds of people. Oscar warns Gloria that for every day she's not with him, he will commence further rampages. And this fight scene that happens, as a fan of kaiju, of monster movies, that's meant to be like the spectacle and the, yay, the monsters are fighting. But in this one, as it's portrayed, it cuts back and forth between the monsters fighting and Oscar and Gloria fighting. And the fight scene is very, it's raw, it's a struggle, it's a big 6-foot man beating up on a petite woman. And it is difficult to watch.
It really is. And even the monster part is hard to watch because you know
what it represents.
Right. And also you know that like this is a weird sentence, all of Seoul is cheering for the monster.
Yes.
And they get to see the monster just getting fully wailed on.
Yes.
Now, does this portal only work at 8:05 in the morning?
It only opens up at that point of the morning for a certain amount of time. Yes.
Yeah, because they like fell down when they were fighting, and then like it was done and they were gone. They just vanished.
Yes, the monster and the robot vanished, but Gloria and Oscar were still fighting in the schoolyard. He keeps brutalizing her even after he knows that the monster part is over.
Yeah. So there's a pleasant little fake out here. Will you keep reading?
I will.
I mean, it's wrong, but keep reading.
Shortly after, Gloria makes a trip to South Korea, apologizing to Tim over the phone, but says she owes him no explanations as he had ended their relationship.
Now, she said she would leave with him.
Yes. She calls and says to Tim really quick, I can't explain, but I'm leaving with you. And that's that. And she hangs up. And then you see her get on a plane. And you see her, going through airports and whatnot. But then you realize when they show Tim and she's not with him, he's like, where the hell are you? I waited for you. You didn't show up.
She went to Seoul.
She went to Seoul. At 8:05 a.m. in the U.S., Oscar carries out his threat, making his robot manifest in Seoul. Gloria walks towards it in Seoul, making her monster appear at the playground back home.
This scene.
Yes.
So fucking cool.
Yes, I've got chills just remembering it.
Mm-hmm.
Gloria's monster catches Oscar and flings him over the horizon, causing the robot to disappear. This wiki article doesn't go into all the stuff that happens in the scene, the physical stuff. It is so well done. And I think such a great ending to this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you see the monster in the sandbox, right? Gloria's face to face with the robot.
You see Oscar, he's playing around in the sandbox, and then you hear the thump, thump, thump of something very large approaching. And Oscar looks up and realizes he's looking at the Gloria monster, who is there with him.
Yes. So when she picks him up, and it's very King Kong and Fay Ray.
Yes. You see her reach to the ground in front of her at the construction site at night in Korea. Just mime picking something up, and back in New Hampshire, it's the monster picking up Oscar.
And he's sobbing. He's dangling off the ground and sobbing.
Yeah, clenched in the monster's fist.
Just hysterical.
that scene of him looking back at the monster's eyes. And at first he's looking back and it's the monster's eyes. And then it cuts for a moment. And then you see he's looking back at it's Anne Hathaway's eyes.
And then he says,
he's first crying and he's going, put me down, please, put me down. And you see back in Korea, Gloria's face start to soften. And then he goes, put me down, you bitch. And
then she just yeets him to Kingdom Come.
Mm-hmm. And while she's doing this in Korea, you see the robot get picked up by a giant invisible hand, and everything that's happening to Oscar is happening to the robot, and nobody in Korea can make head or tail out of it, but
the robot that has been terrorizing them no longer is.
Yes, they see it get flung off into the horizon, and they're all cheering.
So Anne Hathaway just walks away.
Yeah. And she is still beaten up from the fight with Oscar in person. So you see her and she's got like a bloody eye and cuts on her face and everything.
So she walks through the city. People are cheering. Everyone's happy. And she's walking and she walks in end of the wiki.
Yes. Gloria retreats to a bar and asks the bartender if she would like to hear an amazing story. The bartender says yes and offers Gloria a drink, at which Gloria sighs.
And that's the end of the movie.
And that's the end of the movie. The end of the plot section, the end of the movie. That's where we leave it.
That's where we leave it.
That's 2016's Colossal.
And we don't know. We have no answers.
Yes.
We have no answers for anything.
No. But the person Gloria is at the end of the movie, I think, is the much beleaguered good guy, if you're looking for one.
The hero, definitely.
The hero of the movie.
Are
yes.
these good people?
I think it's obvious when she gives up drinking and everything that she's trying to be a good person.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously she is freaked out and sorry that she did things that hurt people and killed people as the monster. And so she wants that not to happen. And everything that she ends up getting into as a result of that to try and keep it from happening again and keep Oscar from doing it again as the robot. And of course she can't tell anyone about it. So she's facing all this alone, which itself is like, it's a really appropriate metaphor for how it feels when you're going through something like this and you feel like you are going through it alone. You can't talk to people about it. I certainly felt that way. I no longer do.
Good.
As a movie, this little unknown, weird ass little piece of cinema by an unknown filmmaker really blew me away when I saw it.
Me too. I really liked it. And I had never heard of it. It had never even caught my eye on the shelf. It was great. I really enjoyed it.
Firefly up.
Firefly up.
2 fireflies up.
Indeed. So, you know what else we have, though, which is really exciting? After these many months, yay, years, we have a mailbag.
We got a couple of emails from a couple of you out there, which we appreciate so much. We are going on and on about how much we love an email. And
we got 2 on the same day.
We did. And we are going to read them.
We are. So, this one's subject line is, yay, from our listener named Mary. And Mary says, hi, a great fan of the podcast here. I'm so happy you guys are back. I can't believe I almost missed 306. Well, we're glad you caught it, Mary.
Absolutely.
I'm kind of hard of hearing, so I mostly rely on your closed captions. Thanks so much for providing those. Is there a way I could get a transcription for the episode? I poked around and couldn't find any. Maybe I missed it, or I'll really appreciate any help. I hope I'm not interrupting at an inconvenient time. Thank you, and thanks for your work. Regards, Mary. Well, Mary, thank you, first of all, and hope you enjoyed 306. And 307, for what it's worth.
Yes.
I'm working on the transcript for 306 is the short answer.
Yes, we've taken the transcripts back in-house. We're doing them ourselves, and that means that we're getting them done as we can do it, which is admittedly not very quickly these days.
Not very quickly these days, but definitely working on it. Definitely in the pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate your forbearance. And yeah, I did finally get the transcript done for 301.
Yes, 301, which was...
Keeping the faith.
Keeping the faith. Yes. So we are working on the transcripts. We will continue to provide them as we can. Priority given to newer episodes, which we've fallen behind a couple now. But we will continue to do our best.
Absolutely. And we will catch up as quickly as we can. And again, we strive to make our work accessible to people in as many ways as we can.
Absolutely.
So yes, definitely working on the transcripts. Keep your eyes open. Who knows? Maybe soon.
And we are so happy to hear from you, Mary.
Very much. Thank you so much, Mary. And also, we got another email. You guys, this is so great.
Yes. This is another one from our pal Sven, who wrote us our very first listener email.
Yes! Which was great.
Yes. Sven writes, Dear Gila and Rob, refreshing my 2020 thank you is long overdue. Sorry for not having reached out much earlier. So, thank you so much for putting your love, creativity, and most of all hard work into each and every episode of Modern Technology Watches. I can hardly imagine how much it takes to put together even a single show.
Well, for me, it's pretty easy because I just talk. You do the heavy lifting.
Well, technically. Also, once again, a big thank you for introducing me to so many movies, 15 alone since my last mail, most of which I would have never known otherwise. Your positive, kind, and cheerful way of getting into every detail, combined with anecdotes and gossip, makes listening a true delight.
Oh!
Right?
I know!
Oh my god. Last but not least, I have a couple of questions for you. You seem to review mostly American Hollywood productions. I'm wondering if foreign movies also have a spot on your DVD shelf. Are there regions outside the US that you find particularly interesting or entertaining from a cinematographic perspective? I'm looking forward to listening to you again, be it on Modern Technology Watches or Off the Hook. Smiley face. Take care and all the best, Sven. Who mentions Off the Hook there, which is, for those who don't know, the radio program we do on WBAI Radio, and which is podcast on 2600.com that we work on with a bunch of our colleagues.
Yeah. Bunch of our pals, and that's once a week.
Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. usually in the New York City area. Sven, thank you so much for that email.
And it's wonderful to hear from you again. You were our first listener email and definitely our longest to date, and we appreciate that very much.
You're our first and now our last, most recent.
And our first multiple correspondent.
Yes, absolutely. We are so happy to introduce you to so many things. Regarding the foreign movies.
You may have heard us talk in some earlier episodes about a couple of lost episodes that we have.
Yes.
And what we've learned is that this little experiment works best with movies in English.
Well, I think it's also a numbers game because primarily we do movies that are on our shelf, that are in our combined collection.
Yes.
And most of those are American movies because that's where we are and that's where we've watched most of our movies. But
that's very true.
But also there have been some attempts at foreign movies. And yes, we had a Japanese movie that I chose once that ended up, it's not that it was a bad movie or anything like that. It was just not a good choice for a discussion, as we found when we tried to sit down and discuss it. Like, we tried recording an episode and it was just not up to our standard, basically. And so we didn't release it. We just did a different episode for that one.
I tried to show an Israeli movie in Hebrew, and that didn't work terribly well either.
Right. There just didn't seem to be a whole lot for us to talk about.
No. And it became basically me giving a lecture on a Jewish holiday, which, well, I'm sure...
I mean, you've done such things professionally, so...
Yeah, I have, but, not in this context. And
right. I don't think the door is closed on foreign movies. I just think our attempts so far have not been successful.
I would agree. And I also think there has been... More than not, we like to go with movies that, stuff that we saw when we were younger. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't necessarily digging into foreign cinema as a child.
I was watching tons of Japanese Godzilla movies.
I was not, shockingly enough. But yeah, I mean, stay tuned. Who knows where we're going to go from here?
We have watched and enjoyed foreign produced things together. None of them have made it to our video shelf or this podcast yet, I don't think. Have any of the... Let me pull this up now because I'm curious. Go down the list here. Rocketman was it British produced, Rocketman?
Fairly British. Right. I mean, I don't know if it was fully British, but definitely partially.
I mean, we did do an Adventure in Space of Time. That was very British.
Very British, but I don't think that qualifies.
But, still in English. Metropolis was a foreign movie.
Not in English.
Not originally in English, but we watched it with...
We watched it with English intertitles.
Yes. But... So yeah, we have had a couple that were produced outside the United States, but not many.
Not many. So, Sven, if you have any recommendations for us, we'd love to hear, and we appreciate that. And who knows where this little experiment of ours is going to go next.
Our minds are always open. So,
if you want to be cool, like Mary and Sven, you can get in touch with us because we would love to hear what you think about the movies we have watched or the movies we haven't, or anything we have said on this program or any other. So, you can email us, go to your email client, and type in watches@modern.technology. Send us an email.
Or if you don't want to go through the trouble of starting up your email client, go to our website, modern.technology/contact. And there is a nice little box there for you to fill in with your message and send on its way to us. Also on modern.technology/contact, you can find our phone number, which is United States phone number 1-929-399-8414. That is the number of our voicemail box where you could leave us an audio message to be played on an edition of this program.
Which would be spiffy. Also on modern.technology/contact, you can find all our social media information. Given everything going on in the world right now, you can most predominantly find us in the social media universe on our individual Mastodon accounts.
Yes.
We both maintain happy homes at the hackers.town Mastodon instance. Mm-hmm. You can find us there.
There are links to our Mastodon presences on the sidebar of modern.technology. We do still have a Twitter, though heaven only knows how much longer that will be a viable thing, at MTPodcastNet. And yes, anything that we use now or anything that we do get on in the future will be added to the sidebar on modern.technology.
Absolutely. Regardless of how you choose to reach out to us, we would love to hear from you. And again, just big thanks to Mary and Sven, because it's awesome to hear from people who listen to our podcast, which is awesome.
That means so much.
It does. Another thing that we would definitely appreciate in the world is if you are listening to us in any system universe that is not directly on our website, we would be so appreciative if you would drop us a rating and or a review. You know, we always say, if you like us, tell a friend or two, or tell an enemy or what have you. But if you would be willing to drop us a rating and or a review, we would be very grateful. We appreciate your taking this journey with us as well. Just the whole trip of it.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us for episode 308 of Modern Technology Watches. I'm Gila Drazen.
And I'm Rob Vincent.
We'll see you at the movies.
We will catch you on the flip side.
You've been listening to episode 308 of Modern Technology Watches with Gila Drazen and Rob Vincent. Go to modern.technology on the web for more info on this show, our other work, and our social media playground. Our music is The Promise by Torley Wong, released Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 3.0. Find more from Torley at torley.com. Thank you, Torley. Content for wikipedia.org is used under Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 3.0. This podcast is released under Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 4.0 and is a production of Joyful Firefly, LLC. Email us at watches@modern.technology. And if you like us, tell everyone you know. Gloria, Anne Hathaway, is an out-of-work party girl who, after getting kicked out of her apartment by her boyfriend.
You want to take that again?
Yeah, let me start that over again.